All right, let's get rolling. Thanks everybody for joining. Good morning. My name is Ben Levely. I am the ITS training manager at University of Rhode Island, and I'm here this morning to talk a little bit about a tool called Zoom AI Companion, which is part of the Zoom meeting interface that we all know and perhaps love, perhaps tolerate. But like it or not, Zoom is a big part of the work we do here at URI, and uh, is increasingly a way that instructors are reaching their students. And in particular, with the Zoom AI companion tool, it extends the value of those sessions beyond just the session itself, into the world where we can have summary information, chapterized, chunked information from something like a lecture, and searchable content for yourself or your students. So it's a powerful tool. It's not it's not particularly intuitive, in my opinion, and others as well. So there's a lot that you can do with it, but a session like this, my goal is to help somebody maybe who's not used it before, or who has used it in a participant capacity, to understand how, as a host, you would go about using it and what your options are after the session is recorded for sharing information out or accessing something in a space that we call the Zoom web portal. And we'll show you a little bit. So this is a guided tour to get you a little bit more comfortable with what the tool does, how to use it, and also some of the safety security considerations with it. So without further ado, let's launch into an example of what you might experience using AI Companion in Zoom. I'm going to take a minute and share my screen here. And what you should see in a moment is what may look familiar as the Zoom meeting interface. In fact, what you're looking at on my screen now is a live Zoom meeting that I'm running concurrent to this WebEx session. So most of us are familiar with the Zoom tool panel by using the mute and unmute feature, or the show and hide video. If I wanted to toggle on my video, there I am. And along this row of tools, you'll see several others. First, I want to point out, if my window was small, notice I'm losing a certain number of tools here. And in order to access the ones that I can no longer see, I have to click more, and they appear in a list fashion. If I wanted to have them reappear at the bottom, I can expand my window and make it a bit larger. Now I'm showing you this because there are two key features for AI Companion, believe it or not, along the bottom toolbar. Obviously, AI Companion is one of them. And when I toggle this on, you'll notice I get a pop-up window that informs me as the host that I'm starting Zoom AI Companion. And importantly, my participants will get a notification to say, uh, your host has asked to start Zoom AI Companion. Do you want to allow for this? And if they accept, then the AI Companion tool begins. And in the upper right-hand corner, this is valuable if you ever come into a meeting midstream and you're wondering, hey, is the AI tool running in this Zoom meeting? This little blinking asterisk icon that it's popular to be used for AI tools and features across different applications. It's flashing, so it lets me know it's active. And when I click on it, I can see specific information about what aspects of the AI companion tool are active during this session. So right now I'm running meeting questions and meeting summary. So this part's really important. Right now, what I'm taking advantage of as the host and extending to my participants is a real-time running transcript of the words I'm saying. So if I wanted to run a catch me up, and if Zoom's doing its job, then it's going back through the transcript of what I've been saying. It doesn't look like it has enough data yet, but when it does, it should populate with a summary of what I've been talking about. And if somebody were to prompt the chat tool with questions, um, it will do its best to generate those answers. Most likely, it hasn't had quite enough time yet, but a couple minutes in, it should be caught up. Now, that's a small part of the value of Zoom AI Companion. It's useful, but the magic comes from when you choose to record your session. And when you record your session to the cloud, rather than on your computer, but if I record the session to the cloud, in small text here, it says Smart Recording with AI Companion enabled. And I'm clicking that option, and it's letting me know I'm muted, which is how I'd like to be for this session. But now it's recording this to the cloud, and on the back end, running some additional AI features that, as you'll see in a few moments, can be quite powerful for after your session. So let's fast forward a bit. I've ended my meeting. I've included what I wanted to include. I'm realizing in real time here the reason, as most of you have probably already realized, AI Companion isn't logging any information because I'm muted. So if I were to have unmuted and been speaking, then that's the way it's getting the live transcription data that it then parses out and gives responses to. So let's end this session. And I'm going to transition now. We're going in a bit of a time machine to say, I've given my lecture in this case. Maybe some students took advantage of AI Companion during the session, maybe not. After the fact, I want to share a few things that happen. I'm going to flip over to something that most people, in my experience, don't actually know about. This is the back half of your Zoom account, which is referred to as the Zoom web portal. And I'll show you what that looks like. Take me a moment to share my screen here. Bear with me. Okay, you should be seeing my Chrome browser. And I'm going to hop over there. And in order to get to the Zoom web portal, you do need to be logged into Zoom. And there are a few ways to do that. One is you can come into the Microsoft My Apps view in your SSO portal. You'll recognize this in all your familiar URI applications. And if I were to click on Zoom, I'm brought to my login page. And if I'm hosting a meeting or joining a meeting, I can do that. But if I click sign into my account, I'm taken to what looks like my web portal. The other way to get to this web portal, if you're curious, is you can actually log in through zoom.com and click sign in, and you'll be logged into the back end if you select via SSO. So if you've never seen this before, let me go to a good view here. The curtain we've just opened up is really the back end account settings for all of your Zoom meetings. And this is like, I always think of this like a tour through a city when you go on a trip and you're the tour guide and they're showing you all the things that you can look at and all the different places you can go and the names of the places and where you can go. Never am I able to in one session understand fully, if I were to go back on my own, where to go. But the goal is, as we walk through these things, to get you perhaps a little bit more comfortable in the space so that if you do visit it again, it feels a little more familiar and you know perhaps where to go to get to what you want to do. So Zoom web portal. You have a lot of the types of things that you'd expect to see here with your information. I'm going to highlight a few things that you might choose to look into after the session because they're probably things that you've been curious about or may want to enable. Firstly, perhaps you've been in a Zoom meeting before and somebody has sent you like a vanity URL, like it's been, oh, join my Zoom meeting at this link. I have a personal link. And if you want to customize what your personal link is, this Zoom web portal is where you do it. I've chosen training.its as my personal link, but if you teach a class and you want it to be Professor Smith, this is where you would set that up. Gives you a sense of kind of what the web portal is meant to do as a back-end tool set. Under meetings, you may expect to find a lot of features related to your meetings. There are some within here, but as you'll see in a moment, most of the settings we're after are further down the list here. But while we've stopped in meetings, I'll just note that your personal meeting room is linked here. And this is useful information if you want to send people directly to the personal meeting room we just listed. Additionally, if you have any like polls or quizzes that you run in your class, you can access a set of that information from here. let's move along to relate to some of the features that we looked at in our Zoom preview meeting with the recording and the AI companion tool. As I scroll down the list, one of the options I have is recordings and transcripts. And if you're like me, you've been in Zoom meetings before, and the host will say, oh, by the way, this is recording. I'll make the recording available afterwards. And sometimes they remember to send an email link with the recording, or if they're using AI Companion, they might send out the summary. But for me, often people forget to do that. When you log into your Zoom web portal and you go to recordings and transcripts, you can see any cloud recordings that you've made. You'll notice this is the one I made just several seconds ago during this session. Here's one I made earlier this morning that we'll take a closer look at in a minute. I can also see what's been shared with me. So if I'm a student in your class and you've recorded a lecture session using Zoom and you've saved it as a smart recording and you've shared it out with your students, by the way, as the host, you have control of what and when you share, I'd be able to access it here. I could click on a session and take a closer look at the recording. I can see, because this was recorded with Zoom AI Summary, and I want to note here, this was almost a 4-hour tutorial session. Imagine trying to like watch front to back this whole session just to, if you missed it or something, without having any sort of summary or any sort of way to search through the content. It would be virtually these days, this day and age, it feels impossible to kind of go through that task with the amount of attention it would take. Because this was recorded with Zoom AI Companion, it's automatically chapterized. There's a summary generated here at the top, and there are smart chapters that I can click on. So if I want to immediately jump to a certain section, I can go to the Workday Spend Management chapter, and my play bar jumps to that section. And the transcript here, which is searchable, also jumps to that section. The other thing that Zoom AI Companion did during this session was listen for keywords like, I'll take that action, or let me take that one, right? Something like this. And because the audio is paired with the speaker, Zoom AI Companion says, okay, during the session, Tyler said he would follow up with the payroll peers about their ability to split and repurpose budgets. So this is useful in the classroom lecture setting to an extent. The main use case I see this for is in things like department meetings or staff meetings, where previously you might have had a note taker capture the different action items. Now, the Zoom AI Companion tool, if you're using it and recording with Smart Recording, can do a lot of that for you. So let's jump back to our Zoom web portal to take a look at some of the other features you can access here. And we're at about 15 minutes in, and I want to just visit the chat to see if there are any questions that have come up. But so far, we're looking good. Please let me know if I'm moving too quickly or if you'd like me to revisit anything. We're going to jump into the next thing that I wanted to share related to summaries. These are transcript specific things, so text-based summaries that come through when a meeting is recorded. So if you wanted to record your session, but didn't want people to click through the video content, but only wanted to see the summary, that would be available here. Related to my favorite new feature that's worth highlighting is a little bit hidden, but if I were to click watch highlights on this particular recording as the speaker, I've got the summary that we just looked, and this was a very short one. So the chapterized summaries, it's just one chapter here. And by the way, if I wanted to edit that as the host, I could. But you'll notice a tab here that says My Meeting Coach. And let's say I'm a lecturer, or in my actual role as a trainer, something I'm curious about often is, am I speaking too quickly? Am I interjecting too many ums and likes and these kind of speaker pauses? Am I speaking more than my participants if I'm hoping to have an interactive session? So if you enable it, and I'll show you where to do that in the web portal in a moment, you can have a meeting coach running during your session that after the fact, just you can see things like the talk to listen ratio, what your longest single section of speaking was, what your longest rant was, if you're using filler words, and what your talk speed is. This is, I personally, and I would encourage you not to regard this as the end all be all authority on your speaking cadence and so forth, but it does give you a little bit of a window if you're curious into what your stats are. Cool tool, really cool if you're teaching like a public speaking class and you want to help coach students on some of these things. Okay. So how do we toggle these on? What are the default states? What's already enabled? And what do you as the user need to know about how to control what's turned on and off? As you'd imagine, as a organization, we err on the side of being conservative around what's defaulted on and off. The user should have the choice for whether or not these tools are turned on. When I come down to settings in my Zoom web portal, I see that it's organized by application type. And under my general settings, I actually start right off the bat with some AI toggle tools. And the way this interface works is you as the user will see a toggle for every feature. Picture a dashboard where you can flip switches on and off. In a case where it's locked by our administration and therefore not able to be turned on or off without specific permissions from the admin, it's grayed out, and you'll see this locked by admin setting. So as I scroll down, one of the settings here is allow users to ask AI Companion questions about the meeting, the feature that I demoed earlier during the session. You'll notice that the toggle is flipped on, and because I see this as modified, it indicates to me as the user that I've actually changed it from what the default parameters are. If I were to reset this, I can reset it to what the default state is. And when I toggle it on and off, let's see, I should be notified of that action. I can see that I've turned it back to where it was now. And under this main toggle, I've got some sub-setting options. So in some cases, people choose to automatically enable this every time one of their meetings starts. So if you know you want to use AI Companion every time and don't want to have to remember to turn it on, then the setting might be for you. For me, I like to choose when I turn it on and off during the session. This submenu here breaks down who you can share access with. For most people, the recommendation is to, under meeting summary, this is what I wanted to highlight in particular. Let me make sure I get this correct. Automatically share summary with. In 99% of cases, you want to automatically share the summary with just the meeting host. And therefore, if there's any content in that meeting that they don't want to share out with the participants, or in some cases, as many of you know, because of the nature of the AI tool processing, there can be some inaccurate information. Very likely there will be. Often it's not like earth-shaking, incorrect information, but sometimes there's something that's just plain wrong. So the recommendation is always to share it with yourself as the host first via email, and then you can share it out with your class the way you would other notes or resources. So there are lots of settings here, and I won't go into each one, but this is where the Zoom web portal, under settings, you should look to see what you want to have on and off by default. There was one or two others that I wanted to make sure to highlight under these settings. So bear with me for just a moment. I'm going to flip back over to check our chat. Karen asks, if someone shares a recording with me, can I generate a transcript? This is a good question. After the fact, if they haven't been running transcript in the recording in Zoom, technically, yes, you could, but it would require you downloading the recording file and then re-uploading to a tool that can run that transcript. But as far as I know, Zoom doesn't have a feature where you as a participant can say, okay, now generate the transcript of this session, if that makes sense. Let's see. The email summary we covered. Who to automatically share settings with, we covered. The templates is the other thing I wanted to mention. So under the default summary template, Zoom AI Companion, when you toggle on summary, automatically groups things into what you see here, this quick recap, next steps, summary, project status. This works pretty well. But let's say you're doing like a lecture hall. There might be another template in here that better suits your needs. So if it's like a TA session, for example, and you really want to focus on the Q&As, then the Q&A session might be a good one for you. If you're working on a staff and it's very like project management focused, the session, then a project update is certainly more appropriate. So these predefined templates, you can choose what you use as a default, depending on how you're most often using the Zoom AI Companion tool. So we talked about settings. We talked about your meetings options. We talked about your personal meeting room. And we took a look at that speaker summary tool. That's a pretty neat set of statistics on your speaker summary. I'm hopping back over to the chat now. We've got about 5 minutes remaining in our time. And I know we've kind of blown through a lot of different features in a short amount of time. Are there any questions from the audience or anything you want to take a deeper dive into? I will highlight, let's see if I can show this on screen here. Subek in the chat has kindly pasted in a few session resources into our chat. One is a Zoom AI Companion help article. I'll show that in a moment. And the other is our security guidance for AI Companion at URI. So here on my screen is our ServiceNow knowledge base article about Zoom AI Companion. So let's say coming off this session, you're saying, okay, great, I think I want to learn more. If you're curious about some FAQs, like what is Zoom AI Companion, things around privacy and security, what does it look like for a user when they're in a session and Zoom AI Companion is turned on? This article has some really helpful information there. And then let's say you're having like a departmental conversation or someone raises a concern to say, well, how much has URI security looked into this tool? For that, the guidance for Zoom AI Companion article is useful. It gives you some general best practices about how to engage with the tool. And on this note, I'll say that a common theme for today will likely be that all of this is a little bit of new territory for us as an institution and for people in general. And therefore, the two-way conversation is such an important part of the way we in IT support these tools and the way you as a potential host enable them. So if there's a concern in your class, I would say be available to that, be open to that rather than dismissive. And I think most people default to this openness and engage IT as a partner in that openness. If someone says, for example, well, I'm concerned that the AI is going to use my data and perhaps sell it back to another company. Or in the case of Zoom, the vendor has committed legally that they do not use user data unless you explicitly state that you are interested in that. Zoom has said they do not use user data to then feedback and train their models. Therefore, if you were having a class session and there was some potentially sensitive information or information a student didn't want shared, then Zoom has committed that that type of information is not fed back into their AI tool for training. As a general rule of thumb, if anybody has strong concerns, then always feel free to reach out to IT, myself, or Bob Vance, who's in this session, and you have specific questions. Karen Loki is another good resource in ITS to ask about particular security concerns, and we can always try to chase down those answers for you. One more question here in the chat as we wrap up. Pamela asks, are you familiar with similar AI tools that can be integrated with Zoom? Firefly's AI, yes. Is this a URI approved tool? I don't remember how it appears in my Zoom account, but you have used it a few times. Uh, Thank you, Pamela, for bringing this up. I was actually in a call with somebody recently who had this tool come into their Zoom session, and they said, "I don't know how this got here, but it joins. It looks like a participant, and it's recording notes and sends it afterwards." This tool is actually, don't be concerned, but it's not approved by URI security. And in the case of that user, I referred them to our security team for assistance removing it. It's a particularly persistent one, and it's not an immediate cause for concern, but it is something that uh, is not approved and shouldn't be in our URI Zoom sessions. So you can open a ticket with the URI help desk and just say, "I'd like help removing the Fireflies tool from my Zoom interface," and they can help you with that. That's a good question. And yes, Zoom AI Companion is approved and should be what you use if you're interested in a summary note taker. And then, of course, if you're not using Zoom but using WebEx or using Microsoft Teams, they have some of their own AI transcription tools that the native ones are also approved rather than the third-party tools. So we're coming up on the end of our session, and I want to make sure folks are able to transition to the next room with time. I'll stick around for a few moments to see if there are any other questions, but I wanted to say thank you for attending. It's great to see a number of people here. And if you have any questions or comments, please feel free to reach out to me directly or to any member of the ITS staff that should be able to help. Thanks very much.